The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Have you ever thought about why people act the way they do? Why are some people more difficult to deal with, while others are always pleasant? Let's find out together. Welcome to Human Behavior. What a trip. Your host is Dr. Jonathan Brower. Our program combines expert guests with people just like you who have questions or comments. We'll have fun exploring human behavior. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jonathan Brower.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jonathan Brower. The name of my show is Human Behavior, What a Trip. And we're going to have a wonderful trip today. My guest is Debbie Danowski, and she's written a wonderful book entitled Why Can't My Child Stop Eating? And Debbie, what's the second half of what's the subtitle of your book?
A Guide to Helping Your Child Overcome Emotional Eating.
I see. So basically, the problem is emotional eating, yes. And before we get into the specifics of what you've written about, what I like to do with my guests, if it's okay with you, is if you can give us all a brief overview of you growing up and what kind of kid you were and what kind of family you were in.
Sure.
Things like that. Can we do that for about 90 seconds or so?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
I was an overweight child. My parents were overweight, and I was absolutely miserable. During my really young years, I was overweight, and I was always the heaviest kid in the class, and there weren't other kids who were overweight.
Uh-huh.
I was teased, I was bullied, I was, things that would never have been allowed today.
Yes.
But then no one really knew, and my parents were overweight, and food was love, and everything was about how much food you could eat.
Yes.
And it was very emotional, eating and food. It was how we bonded. It was everything.
Yeah. So were you overweight as a baby?
I actually was a big baby. I was like 9 pounds, but I was not overweight when I was born that minute.
Yeah, good. And at what age were you aware of being overweight?
Probably as early as I can remember, even before starting school, because I always had to get clothes that were not normal sizes for my age.
Uh-huh.
So I'd say even before school, but really once I got into school, it was very, very obvious.
Yes. And, like in the 6th grade, were you 40 pounds overweight or 20 pounds overweight? What roughly do you think you were?
I think I was closer to 40 pounds overweight because in 6th grade, that was when it really, I think probably before then I was maybe 10, 15, and then 20, and then by the time 6th grade came around, I think I was up to about 40 pounds overweight.
I see. And then when you were in high school, were you still like 40 pounds overweight, or were you getting heavier as the years went on?
Oh, no, I got much heavier. I was probably in high school, I'd say at least 100 pounds overweight, if not 150.
Wow. And at your zenith, how heavy did you get?
I was just going to say my top weight was 328 pounds.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then currently you are at a better weight?
Yes, I actually have lost more than half of my body weight.
Good for you.
Yes, I had to go away, and I have a physical addiction to sugar and flour as well as an emotional one.
Uh-huh.
But that didn't happen until I got older, which is what I'm trying to help parents with their children so that they understand that the emotions come first and then you kind of trigger the physical addiction.
Yes. So as a child, you were likely a weird kid?
Yes.
According to the other kids, yes. And did any of your teachers or adults, other than your parents, did they do anything to try to help you? regarding your weight?
Well, I'm not really, I don't know. I think they more tried to protect me at that point. Teachers didn't cross those kinds of lines, and they didn't really say anything, but when I was teased, they would kind of try to help out a little bit, I think. Not always, but sometimes. But there really was no, I mean, even my parents tried to help me because they wanted to lose weight and they wanted me to lose weight, but it just didn't work.
Did you guys have a dog as a kid?
Yes.
And did you take the dog walking every day?
No, we had a fenced-in yard.
Oh, but well, we can have a fenced-in yard and still walk the dog somewhere.
Yeah, no, we did not.
I see. So there was some kind of demarcation about not giving the dog and yourselves more exercise.
Right. Exercise is not a part of our family. It really, our social gatherings and everything mostly centered around food. Exercise was not in our family.
Yeah. And as you have lost weight, have your parents also lost weight?
No, unfortunately, both my parents are no longer alive. They both died of diseases related to their obesity. My father had he had heart trouble, and my mother, same thing, had heart trouble, and they were both at least 200 pounds overweight when they died.
Oh my! How old were they when they died?
Very young. My mother was 66, and my father was 69.
And how many years ago was that?
My mother died about 8 years ago, and my father about 5 years ago.
I see. And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a brother and a sister.
And were they overweight?
Slightly, but not like nothing like I was.
I see. And when you were a child, did you ever talk to your siblings about your dilemma?
No, it was in my mind, it was this hidden, shameful thing that I would never have talked about.
Oh my, that's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened to help you at some point be willing to talk about it with people and trying to find ways to improve your life?
Well, it didn't happen until I was actually away at graduate school, and I got so miserable that I went to see a therapist, and she asked me, what did I do to deal with my emotions?
Yes.
And I said, I write about them.
Uh-huh.
That's how much denial I was in. And then she looked at me and she said, well, do you ever eat over them? And that kind of broke the denial of, I do. And then it started this.
I lost one thing. You said you eat over them?
Yes. She asked me, did I eat over them? My feelings.
Oh, I see. Eating your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I get you. And then did she end up being of some help to you?
Yes, she actually referred me to another, there was a limited number of therapy sessions that you could do from the school, and then she referred me to someone else, and then I ended up actually in a treatment center along with drug addicts and alcoholics because they treat the physical addiction to food the same, which has since closed.
Yes. And during all this time, did you have any problems with your insulin?
I was never really tested for anything. I don't know that I did. I was 23 years old when I went, so I was still kind of young, and I think I was definitely heading in that direction.
Yes.
But I think I was just kind of at the point where it could have gotten really bad.
Uh-huh.
Because my father was diabetic, and it definitely ran in my family.
Yes. Was he the only person in your family who was diabetic, as far as you know?
No, I have an uncle, and I think my grandfather was, too.
But your mom wasn't diabetic?
No, she was not.
It's very interesting how that works, how some people can be very overweight and not be diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. So what prompted you to write this particular book?
It was the fact that I wanted to help other children and so that they didn't go through what I went through. Obviously I'm writing to their parents, but
yes.
when I write the book, but I wanted them to get help because my parents really just never knew what to do or how to help me.
Yes.
And I just really wanted to spare children who are overweight the kind of pain that I went through.
How long has your book been available for people to read?
It just came out last week.
Oh, wow. So it's Brand new.
Yes, it is.
So hopefully your work and your book can be quite helpful for a lot of people.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yes, well, I hope so too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, what are some of the more specific or larger kinds of issues we could look at regarding why my child can't my child stop eating? I imagine there's certain major parts of it.
Yes, there absolutely. I think the biggest thing is let's everyone look at how we use food in our lives.
Uh-huh.
We celebrate with food. We look at the ads that we see, or we're encouraged to eat to make us happy, to relax us, to
yes.
Food is really just to nourish our bodies, and we have gotten so far away from that as a society. Yes. That I think that the main point of my book is let's just take a second and think about what we're doing and what we're hearing and what we're seeing.
Yes.
Children are seeing ads every day, 3 and 4 ads a day that are encouraging them to eat fast food and to eat junk food and to...
Oh, yeah.
And after a while it just sinks in and it's just you become immune to it and don't really realize what's going on.
Yes. So did you interview kids and their parents?
A few of them, yes, I did, but mostly it's really from my research I'm an associate professor of communication and media studies at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut.
And what state is that in?
Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay.
And my research is in the advertising field, so I was kind of already knew about that. So I did interview some children, but not very many, because most of it was coming at it from this is what you're being, told, and this is how you're being manipulated.
Yes.
And so that I kind of came at it from a different point of view.
Uh-huh. So more specifically, what is your point of view?
My point of view is to actually look at all the different aspects of our culture and what we do with food and say, this is a big part of why our children are so overweight, because
yes.
It's very, very difficult for a parent to try to restrict a child or to try to not make the food they want available, because there's a lot of guilt feelings that are, we're told that it's good that our parents grew up in a time when there wasn't enough food, and those behaviors were kind of passed down where, okay, so if your child looks healthy and has a lot to eat, then you're doing good.
Yes.
But it's kind of backfired on us now.
Yeah. And I would imagine, I know that some people use food to push down a lot of feelings and impulses that they want to avoid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people get a high from eating in the same way that they do from having a drink or whatever other thing that they do. There's a little high, like when you have that taste and that sweet taste or the salty taste.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel better.
Yeah. So someone like me, I'm very thin and very active,
mm-hmm.
and I enjoy eating food, and a lot of it, all the food I eat is healthy, and some of it tastes exquisite, like a nectarine
mm-hmm.
is one of my biggest pleasures of eating.
Okay.
But for some reasons, not only for some reasons, I never wanted to be overweight,
mm-hmm.
because I wanted to be an athlete. And so for me, it was an easy thing to do, but obviously for people who are grossly overweight, it's a whole other story.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that the foods that they're being given aren't healthy foods at all, and it's just much quicker and easier if you can,
yes.
Get something that's already made, and there's lots of, sugar in it, and it's
yeah.
a different mindset from, it sounds like what you have.
Yeah. So it would seem to me that parents who are overweight or not overweight, but who have overweight children, if they're not helping them, they're hurting them.
Yes, but not intentionally. I don't believe that
I agree. They're not doing it out of any kind of, they're not trying to be cruel. I'm not saying that at all. But somehow their awareness or their denial about what's happening is so easily bolstered for them.
Well, it's very ingrained because it's kind of one of those things that's been passed down from generation to generation that you don't, unless you really think about it, you just don't notice it.
Yes. And then, I'm going to bring out one idea here. So Sir Winston Churchill, who was really important in World War II era, he was morbidly obese, he was an alcoholic, and he smoked cigars all day long. And he lived to be 95. So for him, it didn't seem to be a big problem. And he lived to be old.
Well, we don't really know, though. We don't know his mindset. How happy was he? How satisfied was he with his life?
Oh, he also was depressed quite a bit.
Yeah, well, see, then that to me says, okay, he lived till he was 95, but what was the quality of his life? So it did matter.
Yeah. Yes. So when you're working with or talking to people who are heavy, what kinds of things do you say to them that you think might be useful?
I think probably one of the most useful things is to really write about, what food is to you, what is your, how are you using it, when do you eat? Try to notice what you're feeling before you eat. It all starts with awareness.
Yes.
And that awareness doesn't just come, and sometimes it comes from talking, but mostly it's when it's you and your piece of paper there sitting there writing, it really makes you kind of get in touch with yourself and your life.
Yes. And did you do that at some point?
Oh, absolutely.
And then how old were you when you started doing that?
Oh, it wasn't until I got into treatment that I really used writing in that way. I would write, but I would write stories and things like that or articles, but never about myself, never journal writing until I got into treatment, and they suggested that.
I see.
It made all the difference in the world because I never really was aware of what I was doing.
Yeah. So how many years ago did you start being aware of this and start writing about it?
It'll be 24 years in July.
Oh, I see. And you're how old now?
I am going to be 48, so it's half my life.
Oh, I see. We're coming up to a commercial break for about 90 seconds or so. So we'll stop for a moment and we'll have the commercial and we'll come back, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
Legal Shield, total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You're listening to Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower. If you have a question or comment for the show this week, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's toll free, 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to jbrowerphd@yahoo.com. Now, back to Human Behavior, What a Trip.
Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan Brower, back with my guest, Debbie Danowski. Debbie's written a great book. It's called Why Can't My Child Stop Eating? And then the subtitle, you say it, Debbie, it's longer than I can write.
It's called A Guide to Helping Your Child Overcome Overeating.
Okay, fine. And two things. Would you like people to know your phone number and or your email address if they want to contact you?
They can contact me through my website, debbiedanowski.com.
Debbie?
D-E-B-B-I-E.
Two B's, okay, Debbie, and then Danowski, D-E-N-O-W...
D-A-N-O-W-S-K-I.com.
Wait. D-E-N-O...
D-A-N...
Dan. D-A-N...
O-W...
O-W...
S-K-I.com.
S-K-I.com. Okay, so for those of you who are listening who want to know more about what Debbie does regarding her writing about children who can't stop eating, just go to Debbie Danowski, D-A-N-O-W-S-K-I.com.
Right.
Excellent.
Sure.
Okay, so back to what we were talking about. You've made a list of some questions which we can use. One is, the first question here is, child obesity has gotten a lot of attention lately. What makes your book different from the others?
My book talks about, rather than give food plans or exercise tips, which, there's a little bit of suggestions about those things, but my book specifically talks about the emotional overeating in children, and I've never seen a book that does that before. It doesn't really tie in looking at society and what we're being told and how this is making our children overweight.
So I'm inferring that what you're talking about is you would hope that these people would start to be in touch with their emotions.
Right.
And of course our emotions can only be inside our body.
Right.
They can't be anywhere else.
Right.
So the emotions, in a sense, it's almost like a war. Do we let ourselves have our emotions regarding our emotions, including the emotions we have about being overweight? Or are we going to stomp down the emotions and just keep being heavy?
Yeah.
And your position is let's let our emotional experiences be heard and understood by ourselves.
Absolutely, because no one's ever really died from crying or from feeling happy or any of our emotions, but they do die from stopping them down and eating or drinking or smoking or whatever it is they're doing.
Yes. And by the way, from my point of view, there are no bad emotions. They're all just emotions.
Right.
And people who hold back their sadness and don't cry are being self-destructive to themselves. We're supposed to cry when we're sad.
That's right.
And we can learn from our sadness.
That's absolutely right.
But a lot of people, for some reason, aren't willing to do it or aren't sophisticated enough to do it or are afraid of it or all of the above.
I think there's a lot of fear where our emotions are concerned. I think that as a society, we've kind of been told to, put on the happy face and just go on and
yes.
Stuff whatever you're feeling.
Yes, just to be numbed with your feelings, which is terrible.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's very bad.
Yes.
So another question you have here is, why did you write this book? Because you've written other books, right?
Yes, this is my 5th book, and this one is specifically about and for children, to help children. And I think that when the childhood obesity rate started rising, some people are saying that it tripled in the past 30 years, and that's a lot.
Yes.
And when it started rising like that, I guess I kind of got angry, because I was an overweight child, and I just didn't want other children to go through what I did.
Yeah. What age were you born?
What?
What age were you born? How old were you when you were born? Your birthday. What's your birth date?
It's September 16th, 1965.
Okay. The reason I ask because I was born in 1944, and I remember as a kid, when I was at least by the time I was 7 or 8, I was aware of people a lot. And there were some people who were overweight, but it didn't seem to be a lot.
Right.
But somewhere around the 60s, it wasn't in the 50s, but somewhere around the 60s, it seemed people in general, at least in the U.S., were getting heavier. And every decade after that, it seemed to get heavier and heavier and heavier.
That's right.
So I'm wondering what happened, why a lot of people started getting heavier in the 60s, but not necessarily in the 40s. Why is that, do you think?
My theory about that is that in the 50s, this was like a great time when things that weren't available were more available. People had disposable income around that time. And in general, lives got more comfortable. You know, we started to have television. We started to have appliances that made our lives easier. And I think that having enough food and then almost having too much, if you think about it, in the 60s and the 70s, those were the kids of the parents who would have had all these conveniences. So it was almost like, let's just get as much as we can and show how much we have.
Yes, and then also in the 50s, there weren't Jack in the Boxes, there weren't Carl's Jr. and all that stuff.
Right.
So when those came around, it was very easy for parents to give their kids a quick, unhealthy food item.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another question you pose, what do you think is the biggest problem facing overweight children today?
I think it's the attitude that is so present in our society that we have to use food to have fun, that we have to use food to celebrate, that we have to use food to feel better.
Yes.
That, I think, is the biggest obstacle for every overweight person, whether they're a child or not.
Yeah. So when I'm hungry enough, I want to eat food, and a lot of the food I eat, I like eating. Mm-hmm. But let me back up. So when I was 14 years old, I wanted to be a baseball player in high school, but I got cut from the team. Mm-hmm. So then I decided I was going to become a runner. Not that I was good at the time, but I wanted to be something, and I decided to be a runner. And then I decided to start eating more healthy, mm-hmm. which was very primitive at the time, but I still did it. And so I got to like the idea of being really healthy and fit and being able to run and get better and better and better. So for me, the food was a nice help, but it wasn't that big a deal, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my family, it was just the opposite. Food was how love was shown. Food was how they tried to make us feel better.
Yes.
And it was never associated with anything. I mean, even our salad was drenched in oil, and there was nothing. Was nothing healthy about what we did.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think part of that is that my grandparents and even my father, they came from very poor families who sometimes didn't have enough food.
Yes.
And I don't think they're alone. I think that that's one of the things that happens in society is that, during the war years and during the depressions and stuff, our grandparents and our parents, and they didn't have enough food. So when they had enough food, it was almost like, here's all this food now, let's eat it and show how, safe we are and how happy and how whatever else.
Yes. So some people, well, especially if they're literally starving, when they can have food, they want to eat as much as possible because they never know when they'll have enough food again.
Right, and I think we still have that mentality even though we do have enough food.
Yeah.
I think that it's passed down even though there's, food all over the place now, for the most part. I mean, not everyone, but...
Yes. And then, also speaking of food, one can eat very economically and have, brown rice and beans and a vegetable of some sort. Mm-hmm. And that's very healthy. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, it seems too primitive or too bland or too something or other.
Well, our taste buds are trained from almost when we're born. You know, in baby food they even put sugar, and so our taste buds are trained for sweetness, and for, you know, it takes a lot to kind of get out of that cycle and to...
Yes. I don't know if you're aware of this, but back in the 50s or so, maybe even earlier, when anthropologists would go to these faraway places, you know, for people who were very primitive, and the Caucasian anthropologists would give these people candy or just pure sugar, and those people would go nuts. They'd love the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
But for thousands of years, they never had it, and they were just fine without it.
Right. Well, in my first book, which is called Why Can't I Stop Eating?
Yeah.
I talk about how there have been many studies done where they prove that, you know, animals prefer sweetness, and, you know, humans do too, and it's just a cycle that has been really perpetuated in our society. Yeah.
So for my dogs, I have two lovely dogs. They don't eat fruit. I don't give them fruit. Well, on a rare occasion, I give them a teeny bit of watermelon, but that's about it. But what I'm getting at is, for me, eating a nectarine is exquisitely pleasurable, but it's not all that high in sugar.
Right, and if it is, it's a different sort of sugar. It's a natural fruit sugar where it's not a manufactured...
Yeah, and there's a lot of water and pulp in it, too, so...
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So it seems so simple for someone like me to do what I do, but it seems so simple for someone who's overweight to do what they do.
Well, I think part of it is because there's so much involved with the emotions of, you know, that this sweet thing or that sweet thing is going to make me feel better, and I have to have it, and it's going to calm me down. And
well, it does make them feel better for the moment. But after the moment's up, it's downhill.
And it creates, if there is someone who does have that physical addiction like I do, then you've created a vicious cycle because you eat it, you want more, and then you eat it because you want more, and then it just keeps going around and around and around.
Yeah. So some people, in recent times at least, who are overweight, have decided that they're going to quit eating sugar.
Right.
Now, they might be eating other junk food, but at least they say they're going to quit eating sugar. And if they stay with it long enough, within a month or so, they no longer crave the sugar.
Absolutely. That's what I did. I don't have... sugar has to be 5th or higher on the list of ingredients. I don't have processed sugar, and I haven't in almost 24 years.
Yeah, I haven't in almost 60 years.
That's fantastic, and it really does change how your body reacts.
Yeah.
And I think that whole idea of I don't crave sugar ever, and I used to, I mean, as soon as I had the craving, it was in my mouth, and because I took it out of my system, I don't crave it anymore.
Yeah. So you mentioned 5 things above sugar that you would eat. What are those?
It's the list of ingredients. It has to be 5th on the list of ingredients of whatever it is I'm eating so that it won't affect me because there won't be enough in it.
So give me an example of what you mean.
Well, if it were, say, trying to think, most of the stuff I eat is just like peas or, you know, it's like, well, if it were some sort of a packaged food and the first ingredient was chicken and the second was, I don't know, vegetables, you know, carrots, and then peas, and then if sugar was number 5, then it would be okay for me.
And then you could have some sugar?
Because there's not enough in it to affect me.
If you have a small amount of it.
Right. Like a cereal, you know how a cereal, I eat a cereal that the 7 grains are the first 7 ingredients.
I see.
And then I think sugar is the 8th ingredient, and so there's not enough in there that's going to trigger anything in me.
I get you. Now, a couple of moments ago, you mentioned that you might have some packaged food, like maybe frozen food. Do you ever eat frozen food?
No, I don't, actually. I mentioned that as an example. I actually, the only frozen food I have is when I've cooked it, and because I weigh and measure everything that I eat.
Uh-huh.
And so the only frozen food I do is when I've weighed and measured it and then cooked it and then frozen it so I can have it at another time.
I see, yeah. So do you normally freeze your food, or do you just normally cook it and eat it and you bypass the freezer?
Normally just cook it and eat it, but I like to have something in case, I'm running really late or if I got sick, it would just be easier to pull it out. So I have something like on reserve in the freezer.
Yes. So in your current state of awareness, do you eat bread?
No.
So do you avoid gluten-free foods?
Gluten isn't an issue for me either way. I just don't eat bread because of the flour. Sugar and flour are very addictive for me.
Yeah. Because I know for some people, when they start going gluten-free, they normally lose about 10 pounds just right off the bat. I mean, not in a minute, but, in a month or two.
Right, yeah.
Which is kind of interesting, but I've always, the way I've heard it, it's like this 10-pound rule. So whether you're 200 pounds overweight or 20 pounds overweight, you lose about 10 pounds just being gluten-free. I don't know if that's actually accurate or not.
No, I don't either. I'm not very familiar with gluten-free eating.
Yeah. I've been gluten-free for about a year.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't really noticed any huge changes, but it actually has helped me in some ways because I have a cough that's related to having allergies and some asthma. So the gluten-free thing has helped me quite a bit.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But that may not be something to deal with if you're just overweight and not. Yeah.
Right. You want to just start with what the main problem is, and so if if it's emotional, then you start there. If it's physical, then you look at those sorts of things.
Yes.
And the only way you really know that is if you do start to write or you start to think about what it is you're doing and what's happening in your life.
Yes. Yeah. So we're coming up for the second and last commercial for today.
Okay.
So we'll take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk more about what we've been talking about.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Real Life Solutions. Voice America Health and Wellness.
Legal Shield. Total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You're listening to Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower. If you have a question or comment for the show this week, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's toll free, 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to jbrowerphd@yahoo.com. Now, back to Human Behavior, What a Trip.
Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan Brower with my guest, Debbie Danowski. By the way, if you want to go to her website, it's Debbie, D-E-B-B-I-E, Danowski, DANOWSKI.com. So DebbieDanowski.com. So, Debbie, we're talking about overeating and being way too heavy and all that. And during the break, during the last commercial break, you were talking about one problem that parents have is if their child is eating healthy at some party where everybody else is scarfing up lots of ice cream and cake, then their child would be ostracized if they didn't eat the cake and the ice cream also.
Right. There's one of the things that I do in my book is that I list 10 reasons why parents can't control their children's overeating, and one of the big ones is that they're worried if they go to, the birthday party and there's cupcakes and the kid doesn't eat like the other ones, then what will people think? And
yes, exactly.
You kind of have to put that aside because it doesn't matter what people think. If your kid is overweight and going to, have a horrible life, then you have to kind of learn to deal with that. And
that's very hard. A similar thing happens with adults who are at a party and they keep the guests keep giving them more and more wine, and they really don't want to have more wine, but they feel uncomfortable if they don't have the wine. The whole thing is crazy.
Yes, it is. It's like it's almost a pressure that's unspoken, but you don't want to not have I spent hours cooking this, so you have to eat it. Well, no, you don't.
Yeah.
But it's harder to say no.
Yeah. For me, it was never that hard because I'm not sure how it happened, but as a young boy, I was really clear about what I wanted and what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have that problem. But I know I would see kids who did have the problem, and I didn't know what to do to help them, but I felt sorry for them.
Right. Yeah, no, I can. Well, and I think that as a parent, it's not always easy to say no to your child when they want something, but you have to. I mean, you have to be strong because it's really their life that you're talking about.
Yeah. But for the kid at the birthday party who can't have the cake and the ice cream, I can imagine it's really torture.
It could be, but I think it's up to the parent to make it okay.
So how would you imagine a parent could help the child feel okay about not eating the junk food?
Kind of de-emphasize the importance. Many parents will unwillingly just, kind of say, we're going to get this cake and it'll be cake time and make a big deal about the food.
Yes.
And so I think the first step is just to not make a big deal about the food. A lot of times I think that, I don't know if it's a lot of times, but many times children are trying to please their parents, and if the parents are making a big deal about the cake and how good it's going to be,
yes,
they may just eat it just because their parents are making a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. So another part of this is I can imagine a parent having a birthday party for their kid and all the other kids are coming, and the parents make it very healthy. And the majority of kids would be complaining that they're not getting marshmallows and ice cream and cake instead of yummy fruit.
So maybe, but I think if you make it an interesting enough party, then, again, de-emphasize the food part of it.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
There's other things, and I think that it's kind of an easy way out is let's just get as much junk food as we can and everybody will be happy, but it's a little harder to think of other activities to do.
Yeah. So what's your guesstimate, if you have any, as to what percentage of the population, adults and or kids, actually eat healthy? Or conversely, eat unhealthy? What's your guess?
My guess as far as, you mean on a consistent basis, right?
Yeah, eating the junk food and the sugar stuff.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people will eat healthy for, a few days, a couple weeks, and then go right back to their habits. So my guess is that the number is pretty high. I mean, with the obesity rate being as high as it is, I would guess that it's probably up there between, 75-80% is probably conservative.
Oh, that's exactly what I thought, 80%. Yeah. That's pathetic.
It is. It really is.
And so if somehow, this is all hypothetical, if somehow all of a sudden there was no sugar available for 2 months, we couldn't buy sugar, we couldn't get sugar in a coffee or whatever, all these people for 2 months wouldn't have any sugar, and then they wouldn't be craving the sugar.
Right, but there'd be a withdrawal
period. If they got the sugar, they'd probably start using it again.
Right, and there would be a withdrawal period, too, because I definitely went through a withdrawal period where the cravings almost get worse, and I think that's why people give up so quickly.
Yes.
Because you have to hang in there. It takes 21 days for it to get out of your system, and you have to hang in there.
Yes. So what I've done, I do this with people, whether they're heavy or not. When I have people over for dinner, for desserts and stuff, I give them stuff that's very healthy, like I'll give them a rice cake, and then I'll put some coconut fat on top of it, which is super healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put on some yogurt, and then I put on some fruit, and then on top of all that, I put a big leaf of not lettuce, but of cabbage, and then and with plenty of cinnamon on it, and it's really super yummy.
Mm-hmm.
And it really tastes good, and that's not all that sugary at all.
There are a lot of ways to make food taste good and to make healthy food. It doesn't just have to be like steamed broccoli. There are many other things besides that. It just takes a little work and a little creativity.
Yes. So maybe one of your books should be a cookbook. Have you thought of that?
There you go. I actually had thought of a cookbook based on the food plan that was in my first book.
Yeah.
I had gotten so many requests I put a few recipes in there and everyone wanted more.
Yeah. So maybe you could do that.
Yeah, there you go.
But actually, what I do, I'm just very creative about how I eat different kinds of foods together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even need a cookbook. I just kind of wing it, and it's fun. And most of the vegetables I eat are raw, and it's really yummy. So maybe there's a way you could promote that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So what else should we talk about before we end? We have about, I'm guessing about 6 minutes left, 7 minutes left. Anything else you?
Yes, I think that one of the things that I'd like to say to any parents who do have overweight children who are listening is that it's important to go slowly with the changes that you make, because if you do drastic changes all at once, then your child will get confused and get angry and become rebellious.
You're right. It has to be actually very mildly changing, but continually changing, like a steady drip.
Right. And consistency is very, very important. Don't, just make a change, do it for a few days, and then stop, because sometimes it takes a long time for these things to work.
Yes.
But
so ideally, the overweight parent would lose weight as the overweight child would.
Right. I mean, in an ideal world, the parent would take all the unhealthy food out of the house.
Yes.
And then just offer the child, don't tell the child you have to eat this, but say these are your choices, and they'd all be healthy choices.
Yes.
And I think that would really go a long way in changing things, because, and maybe that child, if it's an older child, like a teenager, could go out and get food elsewhere, but at least you're setting an example and making a start.
Yes. So as you're saying this, I'm thinking out loud with you. What if you were to get on this, what's the term? Get on this term, I'm blocking on the word, I can't think of it. But if you were to spend a significant amount of time letting people know about how they can lead a very healthy life and enjoy yummy food, and if you could promote it, it could be you, or maybe you'd have a big staff of people, and this could be promoted throughout the United States. Is that too grandiose, or what?
No, I'd love that. I would really love for...
That would be so exciting for you to do that.
Yeah, and to help all the,
I would be your number one fan.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I have other things I want to promote, but I don't have the time for that one. But that would be so great, and that would be so worthwhile.
Well, I've tried 5 books. They're all about overeating, so I'm doing my part.
Yeah, but I'm saying where you would find people in different states and different cities who like your idea, and then you get this thing rolling, and after a while, it's like a snowball falling down, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And you get more and more people who are getting into this idea of let's eat healthy, screw having so much sugar, and let's really just have a really healthy life, live as long as we can, and enjoy our life with yummy food.
Right, and know that it's okay to, to say no if your child wants to, go somewhere that has unhealthy food. You can offer an alternative and to make an attempt to fill your house with healthy food and to make it so that it tastes good.
Yes.
Because one of the things that you find is that a lot of the healthy foods don't have good public relations or advertising. It's kind of like the dessert is what gets all the attention. And that means that we've made certain foods more privileged than others.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, you could take an apple and bake it, put a little cinnamon on it, and it's great.
Yeah, I put a lot of stuff on cinnamon. I put cinnamon on a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Costco, they have those big containers of cinnamon.
Yes.
I go through one of those in 3 months.
Wow.
I put it in a lot of things, and it's really yummy.
Yeah, and it's healthy, and it makes everything taste really. It's just a matter of being a little creative.
Yes. So tell me again the name of your classes you teach.
I actually teach a lot of different classes, but I teach a class on food advertising.
Yeah.
I teach a class on alcohol advertising.
Yeah.
Advertising in public relations. And I do teach journalism and freelance writing classes.
Okay. So for example, with the food and alcohol, you could perhaps start this swell of awareness that would maybe include 200 million people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very grandiose at the moment, but you actually could start something like that, and it would be consistent with what you teach.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I really enjoy seeing in my classes the students have the awareness of what exactly advertisers are saying to them.
Yes.
Because we analyze ads in our classes, and it's amazing. By the end, some of them are pretty angry about what they've been told all their lives.
Yes. So in the last few minutes of our time together, I'm all hyped up for you to do this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
On a huge scale. And I would be happy to help you in any way I could.
Oh, thank you.
This is really exciting.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, because it would help so many people.
Oh, my God, yes. And it would save people so many medical bills, too.
Yeah, and save lives.
And lives, yes. I mean, there's so many good points to have all these things, put out to people to know about.
Absolutely. Well, and I think even just the fact that people are listening and now they're going to start to think about what am I being told and what do I think about food, that's such a big step.
Yes. I agree. So in the minute or two we have left, what do you want to be sure you end with, if anything in particular?
That if you need to make changes in the way that you eat, to be consistent and to start to make small changes, because it is possible. It's absolutely possible to make a better life for yourself and your child. Yes.
And I would add, for these people to find other people who are like-minded with them, and they can all share their stories together.
Absolutely.
And when they share their stories together, there's more cohesion, there's more resources for each other, and it's just going to make people much happier.
Yes, and I actually do a blog at least once a week on my publisher's website, Central Recovery Press.
Uh-huh.
And people can respond, and that, is a way for people to connect with each other as well.
So how can they know about your blog?
CentralRecoveryPress.com.
CentralRecoveryPress.com.
Yes, and then there's a section that says blogs, and mine is right there.
I see. So you have a particular blog. And what's the name of your blog?
It's just the name of the book. Why can't my child stop eating?
Okay. So I think we're getting near to the end. Is that the case? Okay. So I want to thank you so much, Debbie Danowski, for being with me on my show today. And I want to stay in touch with you and see the progress you make and how I can help you. And it's been a pleasure having you as my guest. So
thank you
so
much. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited.
Okay, we'll talk more later.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, everybody, that's the show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you eat healthy and avoid all this crummy sugar, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you again for listening today. Tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Have fun experiencing your human behavior.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio.